you're trading for larger targets in the slow zone or the quiet period of the day and hoping for those targets to be completed in that frame, you're unlikely going to have much success. The market isn't going to move a whole lot in the quiet part of the day. Now, if you're willing to sit through that for sometimes for hours waiting for the busier part of the day, that's fine if you're able to do that. Most people are not when they're thinking about intraday. So a good generalization from my perspective is that you really do want to be trading in active markets, and all markets tend to open with a bang, and they have some period of time, like if this was the period of the market in time for the day, let's just say, I mean, just to make this really easy to understand, let's just say this is the day, all of this period, going horizontally here, this is the day, and all markets seem to exhibit this tendency that if this is the day, then, and this is really approximate, don't worry about this, but roughly speaking, the first third of the day, something like that, maybe a little less, but maybe if I did that, that's a period where there is almost always active markets. And this is a lot of the times why you see many people or groups will trade only the morning session, because that is where the activity is. The markets will run to targets, a great percentage of the time. That's a really good time to trade because it is an active market. It's possible that within that 3-hour period, maybe, or 2.5 hour period for the S&P, that they may move so fast that we can't get in, or in some way we might miss the opportunity, and then there's not enough time left, and then suddenly you're in the dead zone. And so from this part, the markets, and this is again, all markets tend to exhibit this, the market tends to go something like this, and it gets dead for that period. Now, if the market's a really strong trend day up, in this period, it'll still be quiet, but it still could be making new highs on the session. Let's say the trend is up. But it's only until later in the day, and sometimes even beyond this, it's sometimes depends on the market, but if I were to take this line off, I might even say a little more like this. Then you get to the last part of the day where again, everything picks up and you can have some activity that is similar, but maybe not necessarily great, but similar to the opening activity. So all markets have this kind of thing where they have their really active session at the start, and for maybe, this is again, very roughly a third of their total period of trading, and then they go into kind of a dead zone, but they could be trending, or they just are dead, going back and forth, it's a chop. And then you have the end of the day where they end up positioning themselves to go do something, to finish some move off or so on. So it is smart to wait for the periods of time that active markets exist and that the market tends to want to get things done. A lot of people who may be trading in this area are going to find it sometimes more difficult and more disappointing because the market isn't actually in a position to go anywhere or to do much. We're in that zone now, and we're just now able to get up to try to do 82. Now let's talk about 82, because 82 in our work would normally be due right in this time frame if they could do it. And they are starting to move up, and today's session has had some slowdown, but they did during the midday, they did have a pretty good move, and they're starting to move back up here. But just generally speaking, I just want to say that I'm only bringing this up because it's not just about price, and if the market sits on a price, it's also about whether the market is active. And if the market is active, then you have much better chances of having a successful trade and not having lag and other things that could delay the completion of your trade. So keep that in mind. There is a timing component to when you trade that can help make your trade more successful or be successful earlier, faster, more promptly than you might get in the dead zone. Now, that's number one. But I don't know if you've thought about it, but you can do this same thing with other time periods, like the week. The markets tend to open the week, and on the weekly basis, they tend to trade during the week, and then they get quiet in the middle of the week, and then they end the week with a bang. So you can put this together on different time frames, and as a general thing, get a pretty good idea of where you are in this type of active, quiet, active market. So you could be in the quiet period of an early week market, like a market that opens Monday and maybe a day they go quiet here. But on those 2 days, the intraday quiet will sometimes be still pretty tradable because it's all occurring inside the time period on a larger scale where the market's pretty active. You follow me? So you can get a much, much better idea of where and when you should be trading, something that many may not really be thinking about that much. And it does make a difference when you decide to place your trade. You could also do this with the entire month and split the month up like that. And that will help you to understand better. Here, I think they just did it. There's your 82 right there, 47.82, they just hit it. You can see they're reacting off of that because that's a completion. That's the market going to do something in the dead zone. And it would have been a little bit of a slog to try to trade that because there was a lot of time that happened, right? I mean, if you're looking at a 15-minute chart, to finally grind their way slowly up here to finally get it done and then have their reaction and so on. So do keep in mind what I'm telling you here, because this is a component of successfully navigating the markets, not just the price levels, but also the when to trade, when to actually consider being in markets. I certainly go over that. I mean, it's one thing to make a forecast. It's another thing to trade it. And when you're trading, it's another thing to know when to even be considering putting a trade on and when to be letting it alone. Like as an example, when you're getting into the Wednesday portion of the week, the market could have a big day that day, but in the Wednesday portion, the dead zone might very well be a lot deader than it is on Monday and Tuesday. See, because you're in the dead zone of the week at that point. So this you may not have thought through. You may have thought about it on the daily, but you may not have thought of it on these other time frames. And this is why I've stressed for so long how really important it is to understand the bigger picture, both about the market's position structurally, with price and pattern and so on, but also with regards to time. And when I'm referring to time, in this case, I'm referring to times when the markets would be active and times when they wouldn't be active.